Welcome to Message Live. To make sure that you don't miss anything we're doing, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, make sure that you turn on notifications. You don't want to miss a thing.
Welcome back to Eden the Walk. Thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope that you've been enjoying the series so far as we've been exploring what it means to live sacrificially, to share the gospel and to build community. When it comes to joining Eden, there are many reasons that people give for not wanting to. They don't feel they're suitable, they don't feel like they've got the right skills, maybe they feel too old or too young. But we have learnt that some incredible things happen when God uses the gifts and the skills and the talents of individuals and matches those with the needs and the opportunities in community. One of those incredible things happened through the work of Laura in Fitton Hill.
I think Message 2000 was the turning point in my life, really. So I came up at 18 and was really struck by how the gospel and social justice could go hand in hand. I really felt God audibly tell me to stay in Manchester, and I then joined an Eden team in Harper Hay, and then after that moved to Fitton Hill with my husband, where we set up the Eden team and the church plant there. I was at medical school, and the healthcare that I saw my neighbours experiencing was not what I was learning, and the discrepancy made me quite angry, and I think that anger fueled a passion to try and change something. So we campaigned as a community for a number of years that Fitton Hill needed a health centre, and the manager who I'd had to deal with turned around to me and said, "We're going to put a health centre in Fitton Hill, and seems as you've been so tenacious, you could always tender if you like." So I said, "I will," and that evening Hope Citadel was formed. The vision's really simple: to provide really good healthcare in a passionate and compassionate way, to find ways of unpicking problems that people have and transforming their lives. 9 years ago, I sat alone at a prayer meeting, and I started drawing and found myself drawing this building that was a health centre and had lots of community activities in it, and it had a stained glass window. And then 5 years later, it was amazing because the building that I walked into had all the details, including the stained glass windows, as I'd drawn it 5 years earlier. We now have 9 practices that we're running in Greater Manchester. We've just taken over a couple more in the last couple of weeks. They're all in areas of deprivation, and I continue to be excited and humbled by the transformation that we see in the people we work with. On paper, I was really unlikely to be useful in areas of deprivation. So it's amazing how gracious God is and how kind God is, and how He really is the God of the impossible, that all my geekiness has been used for the benefit of the kingdom.
It's such an incredible story, isn't it? How God used Laura's gifts and skills and talents and put in her that holy dissatisfaction with the healthcare for her community that she saw in front of her, and prompted her to do something about it. It's incredible, isn't it, when God uses what He's put in us to transform the injustice, to transform the problems that we see around us. You see, here at Eden, we share the gospel, but we don't believe in a gospel that is purely about individual salvation. For us, the gospel is good news for the whole person. It's good news for the whole community. And we love to be part of projects that see the whole community affected positively. We're now going to hear from another team in Partington, Greater Manchester, as they talk about a project that they set up to reach their whole community.
We opened the Hideaway in April 2018. We opened it with a vision to provide a fun, inclusive, safe environment for local families to be able to bring their children, to be able to meet together, to be able to play, to eat and have fun. And it's a place where they can also access support, where they can learn together. Also, employment has always been a really high priority for us. We want to be a really good local employer. We want to employ local people. We want to provide people that others wouldn't give opportunities to with jobs and with training and with support. And we have a real ethos of family here, sense of family. We want to raise up and help people become the best that they can be. About a year ago, we built an ark in our cafe. We turned our cafe into a whole Noah's Ark theme, and that included building a sort of classroom, like a community space where we can have groups and we can have training sessions and workshops and things like that. And that's been absolutely amazing. Yesterday I heard a story. Someone contacted me and said they came and did some free first aid paediatric training a few months ago, just before lockdown. And yesterday a neighbour called them and they were able to run out, and there was this emergency, and this 2-year-old had got a pound coin stuck in her throat, and she was able to put into practice what she'd learned on the course and save the little girl's life. And I love hearing that story, and it's a great example of what we do here and why we do it, and why we try to make everything free as much as possible. So 5 months ago, COVID happened, everything shut down, the world shut down, everybody knows things went mad. Obviously as a play centre and as a cafe we had to close along with everybody else. We didn't want to leave it there. We didn't feel that was right. We've been put in a really unique position in our community. We're in the centre of the community, in the shopping centre. We have a huge unit and we wanted to use the resource to the best of our ability. So we decided immediately, in fact before lockdown we saw it come in, and we decided to create what we now call the Hope Centre. So over the last 5 months the Hope Centre has been providing food parcels, hot meals, packed lunches, the official food bank parcels, wellbeing phone calls, activity packs, craft things, you name it, anything we can do to help the local community, people who've not been able to leave their houses, people who've been ill, people who've been struggling in all kinds of different ways, and we've been doing everything that we can to help those people. During that time we've already given out well over £50,000 worth of food in various forms to the community, which has been incredible. And we had a gentleman tell us last week that without the Hope Centre he felt that he'd be dead now, that we've literally kept him alive through this time, and it's humbling, it's a massive privilege. Through the Hope Centre we've been acting as a official Trafford community hub, and many of our team have been volunteering here during this time, and we've had probably close to 100 volunteers actually from the community and the wider community, and from many churches across the region, which has been amazing just to see people from the community and to see Christians from all denominations and churches come together to pack food parcels, to go out rain or shine, delivering hot meals and delivering packed lunches and delivering food parcels and things like that to people's doorsteps. It's been absolutely brilliant. The whole Hope Centre has led to some incredible God encounters. We've been able to have some amazing conversations with people. We've had lots of our drivers praying with people on doorsteps. Through the wellbeing phone calls and building relationships with people, we've seen people coming to church online for the first time and joining in with things that happen across the community. We've been able to pray with so many people and have conversations with so many people that we never even encountered before. We always work with families, and now we're working right across the community with every single group of people, every age group, every kind of race and background. It's absolutely it's incredible, and it's just a massive opportunity for us to share Jesus and to put his word, his command in action. on the street, literally feeding those who are not able to feed themselves.
What an inspirational bunch those guys are. The way that they've taken their skills and their knowledge and their passion for community, and they've not just thought up some great ideas, but they've listened and they've learned through years and years of service, through watching and being part of people's lives and seeing what the real need is, not just what we imagine that people might want. Now we're going to hear from Sam as he shares a little bit more about how we understand our community better and how we get to know what is really needed.
Do you have what it takes? Do you have what it takes to join an Eden team? Do you have what it takes to begin to get stuck into incarnational mission? Well, the answer might be that you just don't think you have. I meet people all the time who tell me how much they love Eden, how the model is something that they would love to spend their time doing, but they just don't think they've got what it takes. And maybe that's because they hear that Eden is focused on young people as one of our primary methods for ministry, and they just think the idea of spending each and every night with young people from a disadvantaged community is not really what they're cut out for. Or maybe it's because they just know that they already have a very busy life, a busy job, or a difficult family to contend with, and therefore know they have very limited capacity to be able to serve other people. Or maybe it's simply because their view of a disadvantaged community and the skills and the gifts and the abilities that God has given them just don't go together. But then this is where Jesus is awesome. So Jesus has this amazing ability of taking our gifts and our skills and aligning them beautifully with the needs of the neighborhood. I've seen it time and time again when God calls people into a community that they don't know. They are surprised just how the things that they are gifted with have been given almost for the sole purpose of serving the neighborhood that they've come to support. I've heard of some incredible Eden workers who have made that radical step of downward mobility and have been so perfect for the communities they moved into. There was one lady that I like to call the Eden Granny who retired from life in Chorley Wood and moved to the #1 most disadvantaged community in the country. And there she became this beautiful figure within the community who would open her home to young people and would bake with them and almost be a grandparent to them, something that was so necessary and needed in that community. I've heard about inspirational and creative projects, the Knit and Natter projects. You'd never think anyone from a disadvantaged community would be interested in knitting, but yet when people got together with sticks and wool and began to knit together, something beautiful of the kingdom emerged. There's baking clubs and there's biking clubs, and there's all sorts of things that teams innovate in order to build relationship and to share the good news of Jesus. But what are the needs of the neighborhood? Often we know our skills, we know what we love to do and what we can bring, but it's so important that we take time to listen and learn about what the community that we are moving in to take part in really needs. Instead of thinking we come with the answers, we must listen first to the question that is being asked. Often I like to talk about community exegesis. How do we learn about the neighborhoods that we have moved in to join? It's so important that when we look at the map in front of us, we begin to learn the patch that God has given us to oversee and take a part in, and learn about the nature of it. Before we attempt to meet and address a need, we must establish what needs must be met. In Acts 17, we get to see this learning about community up close and personal. the Apostle Paul arrives in Athens. There he's going to meet his good friends Timothy and Silas. And as he waits, he could have just booked himself into a hotel room, kicked up and watched some Netflix, but yet he loves to get out and about around the city and is instantly learning something of their culture. And it's that which he's going to use ultimately to share the good news of Jesus. Let me just read to you from Acts 17. All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship. I even found an altar with an inscription to an unknown God. So you are ignorant to the very thing you worship. And this is what I'm going to proclaim to you." See, he gets out and about. He goes from the synagogue to the marketplace. He's taking in the sights and the sounds, and he's beginning to make a judgment about the cultures in which they live, the things that they hold dear to, their way of life. And it's there he establishes his gospel route, his way into sharing the good news of Jesus. He spots this idol right at the center of Athens to a God who has no name, and it's here that he places his gospel testament. It's here that he begins to identify the character of Jesus. When we go into our communities, it's so important that we begin to exegete, to unpack the nature of the communities that we are joining and ensure that we are learning from what we see. We need to ask questions of the history of the place. Why is it the way it is? Where does its name come from? What's its origin? And who are the people that live here or established the place? We need to think about geography. Why was this neighborhood built? What are its boundary lines? Where are the key sort of meeting places? What does the geography tell you about its existence and the people that live within it? It's important that we look at the demography. What kind of people live here? What race are they? Are there multiple ethnicities? What languages are spoken? And that might be evident in the shops in the high street, or it might be evident in the smells of your neighborhood. We need to learn about who we can get access to. Are the streets filled with young people, or are all the elderly people in one particular place? Learn about who lives there and how they live. And that leads me on to culture. What are the cultures within your community? Is it a very matriarchal or patriarchal culture? Is it a culture where people spend time outdoors a lot of the time? You know, in my neighborhood, we used to take out our sofas on hot sunny days and live outside amongst our neighbors. But maybe there are cultures that are unhealthy, some unhealthy practices that can be addressed. Maybe they are cultures that have not been dealt with for generations, cycles that can be ministered to in Jesus' name. And that leads me to the spiritual elements. When we look at the map of our communities, as we begin to walk around, we need to look at the idols. Where are the places of worship? Some of those places of worship may be positive. There may be churches that exist within the community, but there also might be some very negative things. Some idols of worship that have existed in this community and have defined its very existence. So the question is, how do we go about doing this? It's really important that we address our hearts, and as we enter community, we are going humbly and with real teachability. We're inquisitive, asking the right questions, making sure that we don't go with the answers. We're looking for those people of peace, those people who will give us real insight into the community, who will open doors for us to meet people and tell us things about the nature of this community. There are some amazing people with such insight, and it's so important that we establish relationships with them. Not relationships that are arm's length, but intimate. We bring people near. We enter their homes and we get to know them. And as we get to know them, we get to know the community too. We need to review and reflect. Sometimes it's important to step away from our community, to then take time to process what we are learning, to take time to think and reflect and analyse. I actually used to love it when people would come to my community and help me discern what was going on. I'd sometimes ask people what they'd experienced. What smells and sights did they see? Because often we can become numb to the very things that are under our nose, and seeing things from a fresh perspective really help us as we continue to learn about our neighbourhood. And we filter all these things through the Bible. Often God will give us great passages that help us as we are processing to understand things from His perspective. It's important that we partner with other people. Inside our neighbourhoods, God will be at work. And God will often have placed people that we can't first see when we move into our community. But it's important that as we begin to establish an understanding of our neighbourhood, that we partner those who are already doing great things in Jesus' name. And actually, sometimes those who don't represent Jesus at all, but are doing things that look and smell like the kingdom. Why not join their mission and their ministry before we try and establish our own? And it's so important that we continue to evaluate. Our neighbourhoods change, they keep updating. You know, the neighbourhood I moved into 20 years looks very different now. And I have to continue the process of learning if I'm going to be able to minister to them in the most relevant of ways. So here's some practical steps. Prayer walk. And keep prayer walking. Sometimes when we walk our streets, we're discerning what God is saying, and we are smelling and seeing and hearing things for the first time that will give us insight into community. We're looking for the stakeholders. Who are those people of peace? The gateholders, those people that will open the community to us. Look and actively pursue them. And maybe do some surveys. Go and knock a few doors. Find something which just is a survey just about learning about your community, and begin to ask people to tell you the stories. Ask for the stories of the community to come out. Tell me what it was like here when you grew up. Tell me what it was like last year. Learn the stories of the community and then become a storyteller yourself. Write down all that you learn. Write down all that you experience. And one of the things I love to do is practically map my neighbourhood. I try and write as many names down as I possibly can. I try to understand where people live or where people have moved to or moved from. I try and map out the important places, the places in which people gather, the places in which people worship. I'm trying to detail map everything of my experience. And all the time, I'm trying to understand God's perspective. Why have you called me here, Lord? What have you given me that I can use in this place? Show me, God, this community through your eyes. And as we do that, God will reveal just where we fit in the neighbourhood and where we fit in his plans. He goes before us. He's here, existing in the community before we even arrived, and he'll be here long after we move on. But when we begin to see that God has a plan and a purpose and that we can join him in it, we will see great and awesome community transformation. God bless.
I hope that you've been inspired by many of the stories and the teaching that you've heard today. I know I have, and also amazed at the way that God can use what he's created us to be to build his kingdom where he wants it to be built. Perhaps you're thinking, maybe he wants to use me, maybe he wants to use my gift, my skill, my talent. Maybe he wants me to serve, to help these people overcome the injustices that they face. Then why not get in touch? Why not consider joining? Here's how you can do that.
Will you help us take the good news of Jesus to the hardest to reach young people and places? Here's how you can get involved. It's only thanks to your prayers that we're able to take the good news of Jesus to the hardest to reach in society. Will you join our faithful team of prayer supporters? Do you want to be part of making the gospel known in our families, streets and communities? Then why not get involved in our work? Do you have a heart for urban mission? Why not join one of our Eden teams who make our nation's poorest communities their homes, sharing their lives and the gospel with their neighbours? Can you help us transform lives by supporting the work of the message? Just £25 a month would make it possible to take the good news of Jesus to more of the hardest to reach young people and places than ever before. Sign up to pray, join or give at message.org.uk/get involved.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We have loved sharing our stories with you. We're so excited about what God is doing, and we would love it if you would join us on this adventure. Until next time, see you soon.
Thanks so much for watching, we hope you enjoyed. Make sure that you guys don't miss out on anything that we're doing. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure that you turn on the notifications. You don't want to miss it.